Hello, welcome to day of reading through the Bible. I'm Toni Henderson-Mayers. I'll be your reader. I'm known as an actor, a director, producer, professor, but most important, I'm a child of God. And I'm also known as an entrepreneur too, as well. If you want to know more about me, join my Toni Henderson-Mayers YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe and ring the notification bell for that channel and this one so you'll know every time I upload a new video. So, you ready to read God's word? Let's go. Okay, we're going to read Ezra 4 through 6, and then we're going to read Psalm 137. Let's read. Chapter 4, Opposition to the Rebuilding. When the enemies of Judah and Benjamin heard that the exiles were building a temple for the Lord, the God of Israel, they came to Zerubbabel and to the heads of the families and said, "Let us help you build, because like you, we seek your God and have been sacrificing to him since the time of Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, who brought us here." But Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the rest of the heads of the families of Israel answered, "You have no part with us in building a temple to our God. We alone will build it for the Lord, the God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, commanded us." Then the peoples around them set out to discourage the people of Judah and make them afraid to go on building. They bribed officials to work against them and frustrate their plans during the entire reign of Cyrus, king of Persia, and down to the reign of Darius, king of Persia. Later, opposition under Xerxes and Artaxerxes. At the beginning of the reign of Xerxes, they lodged an accusation against the people of Judah and Jerusalem. And in the days of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Bishlam, Mithredath, Tabeel, and the rest of the associates wrote a letter to Artaxerxes. The letter was written in Aramaic script and in the Aramaic language. Rehum, the commanding officer, and Shimshai, the secretary, wrote a letter against Jerusalem to Artaxerxes, the king, as follows. Rehum, the commanding officer, and Shimshai, the secretary, together with the rest of their associates, the judges, officials, and administrators over the people from Persia, Uruk, and Babylon, the Elamites of Susa, and the other people whom the great and honorable Ashur, okay, it's going to get blurry now, Ashur Bani Pal deported and settled in the city of Samaria and elsewhere in Trans-Euphrates. This is a copy of the letter they sent him. To King Artaxerxes, to King Artaxerxes, from your servants in Trans-Euphrates. The king should know that the people who came up to us from you have gone to Jerusalem and are rebuilding that rebellious and wicked city. They are restoring the walls and repairing the foundations. Furthermore, the king should know that if this city is built and its walls are restored, no more taxes, tribute, or duty will be paid, and eventually the royal reserves will suffer. Now, since we are under obligation to the palace, and if it's not proper for us to see the king dishonored, we are sending this message to inform the king so that a search may be made in the archives of your predecessors. In these records, you will find that this city is a rebellious city troublesome to kings and provinces, a place with a long history of sedition. That is why this city was destroyed. We inform the king that if this city is built and its walls are restored, you will be left with nothing in Trans Euphrates. The king sent this reply to Rehum, the commanding officer, Shimshai, the secretary, and the rest of their associates living in Samaria and elsewhere in Trans Euphrates. Greetings. The letter you sent us has been read and translated in my presence. I issued an order and a search was made, and it was found that this city has a long history of revolt against kings and has been a place of rebellion and sedition. Jerusalem has had powerful kings ruling over the whole of Trans-Euphrates, and taxes, tributes, and duties were paid to them. Now issue an order to these men to stop work so that this city will not be rebuilt until I so order. Be careful not to neglect this matter. Why let this threat grow to the detriment of the royal interests? As soon as the copy of the letter of King Artaxerxes was read to Rehum and Shimshai, the secretary, and their associates, they went immediately to the Jews in Jerusalem and compelled them by force to stop. Thus the work on the house of God in Jerusalem came to a standstill until the second year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia. Chapter 5. Tattenai's letter to Darius. Yeah. Okay, eyes. Y'all praying for my eyes. They got better a little bit and now they're trying to act up. Now Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the prophet, a descendants of Iddo, prophesied to the Jews in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel who was over them. Then Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, son of Zoadak, set to work to rebuild the house of God in Jerusalem, and the prophets of God were with them, supporting them. At that time, Tattenai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai, and their associates went to them and asked, "Who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to refinish it?" They also asked, "What are the names of those who are constructing this building?" But the eye of their God was watching over the elders of the Jews, and they were not stopped until a report could go to Darius and his written reply be received. This is a copy of the letter that Tattenai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai and their associates, the officials of Trans-Euphrates, sent to King Darius. The report they sent him read as follows. To King Darius, cordial greetings. The king should know that we went to the district of Judah to the temple of the great God. The people are building it with large stones and placing the timbers in the walls. The work is being carried on with diligence and is being carried on diligence and is making rapid progress under their direction. We questioned the elders and asked them, "Who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to finish it?" We also asked them their names so that we could write down the names of their leaders for your information. This is the answer they gave us. We are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the temple that was built many years ago, one that a great king of Israel built and finished. But because our ancestors angered the God of heaven, he gave them into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, the Chaldean king of Babylon, who destroyed this temple and deported the people of Babylon. However, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree to rebuild this house of God. He even removed from the temple of Babylon the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem and had brought to the temple in Babylon. Then King Cyrus gave them to a man named Sheshbazzar, whom he had appointed governor. And he told him, take these articles and go and deposit them in the temple in Jerusalem and rebuild the house of God on its site. So this Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundation of the house of God in Jerusalem. From that day to the present, it has been under construction, but it is not yet finished. Now, if it pleases the king, let a search be made in the royal archives of Babylon to see if King Cyrus did in fact issue a decree to rebuild the house of God in Jerusalem. Then let the king send us his decision in this matter. Chapter 6. The Decree of Darius. King Darius then issued an order, and they searched in the archives stored in the treasury at Babylon. A scroll was found in the citadel of Ecbatana in the province of Media, and this was written on it. Memorandum. In the first year of King Cyrus, the king issued a decree concerning the temple of God in Jerusalem. Let the temple be rebuilt as a place to present sacrifices, and let its foundation be laid. It is to be 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, with 3 courses of large stones and one of timbers. The costs are to be paid by the royal treasury. Also, the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took from the temple in Jerusalem and brought to Babylon, are to be returned to their places in the temple in Jerusalem. They are to be deposited in the house of God. Now then, Tattenai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai, and you other officials of that province, stay away from there. Do not interfere with the work on this temple of God. Let the governor of the Jews and the Jewish elders rebuild this house of God on its site. Moreover, I hereby decree that you are to do for these elders of the Jews in the construction of this house of God. Their expenses are to be fully paid out of the royal treasury from the revenues of Trans-Euphrates, so that the work will not stop. Whatever is needed, young bulls, rams, male lambs, for burnt offerings to the God of heaven, and wheat, salt, wine, and olive oil, as requested by the priests in Jerusalem, must be given them daily without fail, so that they may offer sacrifices pleasing to the God of heaven, and pray for the well-being of the king and his sons. Furthermore, I decree that if anyone defiles this edict, a beam is to be pulled from their house, and they are to be impaled on it. And for this crime, their house is to be made a pile of rubble. May God, who has caused his name to dwell there, overthrow any king or people who lifts a hand to change this decree of or to destroy this temple in Jerusalem. I, Darius, have decreed it. Let it be carried out with diligence. Completion and dedication of the temple. Then, because of the decree King Darius had sent, Tattenai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai and their associates carried it out with diligence. So the elders of the Jews continued to build and prosper under the preaching of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah, a descendant of Iddo. They finished building the temple according to the command of the God of Israel and the decrees of Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. The temple was completed on the 3rd day of the month Adar, in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. Then the people of Israel, the priests, the Levites, and the rest of the exiles celebrated the dedication of the house of God with joy. For the dedication of this house of God, they offered 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 male lambs, and a sin offering for all Israel, 12 male goats, one for each of the tribes of Israel, and they installed the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their groups for the service of God at Jerusalem, according to what is written in the book of Moses. The Passover. On the 14th day of the first month, the exiles celebrated the Passover. The priests and Levites had purified themselves and were all ceremonially clean. The Levites slaughtered the Passover lamb for all the exiles, for their relatives, the priests, and for themselves. So the Israelites who had returned from the exile ate it, together with all who had separated themselves from the unclean practices of their Gentile neighbors in order to seek the Lord, the God of Israel. For 7 days they celebrated with joy the festival of unleavened bread, because the Lord had filled them with joy by changing the attitude of the king of Assyria, so that he assisted them in the work on the house of God, the God of Israel. Okay, we're going to now read Psalm 137. Psalm 137. By the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept. When we remembered Zion, there on the poplars, we hung our harps, for there our captors asked us for songs. Our tormentors demanded songs of joy. They said, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." How can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? If I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not consider Jerusalem my highest joy. Remember, Lord, what the Edomites did on the day Jerusalem fell. Tear it down, they cried. Tear it down to its foundations. Daughter Babylon, doomed to destruction. Happy is the one who repays you according to what you have done for us. Happy is the one who seizes your infants and dashes them against the rock. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading and hearing of his holy word. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. Well, wowzer, we are in the book of Ezra. We are in a historical book of the Old Testament, because we have books of poetry, have books of the prophets, books of law. We are now in the historical books as we move along with the reading of the Bible. Okay, so of course, the book of Ezra is written by Ezra, and we started there with chapter 4, and we read all the way to chapter 6. So we last yesterday when we read, they were beginning to build the temple. Remember, there was a lot of wailing, and there was also a lot of cries of joy when that foundation was being laid. But then there were like letters that had been exchanged, okay? And then they were allowed to, there were letters being exchanged that kind of stopped their progress in building. But when we get to chapter 4, we find that there are oppositions in the rebuilding of the temple. You always got some hateration going on, somebody hanging around. These were the enemies of Judah and Benjamin, the tribes, and they heard about the rebuilding and they didn't like it. Okay. They didn't like it. So they sent a letter to Xerxes and Artaxerxes, okay? And the letters, for those who have not read it, and I know you're like, why are you saying that? We just read it, but this will be a separate video, this end piece in the future, for those who want to get a summation of what we read, and they may want to be enticed to read, okay? But anyway, Xerxes and Artaxerxes, there were some letters being exchanged from them to Rehum and Shimshai, the secretary, and they went back and forth. Artaxerxes, of course, he fell into that and said, "Yeah, don't build the temple." Okay, because these some troublesome people, and you know, there's always somebody who can get the facts but they'll twist the facts, right, to make it go according to what they want. Yeah, there was a lot of commotion going on, but it wasn't because Israel started some mess, okay? But there was a lot of stuff going on, and he used that against them, their tarry past. Has anybody used your tarry past against you? Because people will do it, especially the ones who are hating on you. So this is not new. But any old way that happened, and there was some, some temporary stoppage of the building of the temple. However, when Darius became the king, believe it was like in his second year, they reached out to him, the Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the prophet, basically said, y'all build this temple, okay? And the people, Judah and Benjamin and some of the other Israelites said, okay, yeah, we're gonna do that. But when they did this, you know, some hateration again. Well, I don't know if they were hateration as much as they were like, who told you to build this temple? So they went back to Darius, wrote a letter, and then Darius wrote back and he checked out the archives. And I love this. In both incidents, they checked the archives. They kept records of what happened under each king's leadership. Guys, it's important to keep records of what's going on in every facet where you're leading or you're trying to be organized. God is showing us to keep these records are so, so important. But they found out in the records that King Cyrus did issue a decree. And because of that, and Darius decided, hey, well, we're going to continue with the building of the temple, and we're going to give them what they need, and you guys are going to help them. Okay. And so the temple is now completed. As we start getting into the latter part of chapter 6, it's being completed, it's being dedicated. They are celebrating their feast days. They are burning the offerings and different things like that. They're bringing all these animals and different things like that for burnt offerings. And then they celebrate the Passover. Okay. Wow. That's something that they have not really been able to do in such a long time, and they are doing it at that moment. And then we skip to Psalm 137, which we see is a psalm about Babylon and how they wept in Babylon, how they were captive in Babylon, how they were instructed to sing joyful songs, even though there was so much stuff going on around them that it was so hard for them to sing any song, and they were not in their own land. There were not a lot of great things going on, okay? They had a lament and love for Jerusalem. And then yeah, and they had a lament and love for Jerusalem. So that's basically what the psalm is about. And that's why we kind of jump to that psalm, because it correlates to what was happening in these last three chapters, not last three chapters of Ezra, but chapters 4 through 6, 4, 5, and 6 of Ezra. Well, darlings, make sure you visit me on my website, which is www.ToniHenderson-Mayers.com. And I hope that you are being blessed by the reading. It has definitely been inspiring to me to know that sometimes things will collapse in your life, but there'll be a day of rebuilding, and what a joy it will be. Sometimes even the same people who helped you collapse it, honey, will be the same people that will help you rebuild it. And I hope that speaks to your spirit on today. Well, just know that the word of God is a lamp unto our feet. It is a light unto our path. We will hide God's word in our hearts that we may not sin against God. You take care, and I will see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye. Hey there. Thank you so much for checking out my video, and I want you to check out my website at ToniHenderson-Mayers.com. You can find out about me in film and stage. You can also find out about the wise courtship philosophy and everything that I do speaking across the country, and the book that I've written. And of course, you can go on to my online store where you can learn a lot of information about business, get coaching sessions, online courses, and so much more. Not only that, I have an Etsy store, which the website of all of these things are in my description. So make sure you go to my Etsy shop, which is called Faith, Hope, and Love Center. Make sure you go to that so you can get t-shirts, and I'm adding things every day, t-shirts, mugs, masks, all types of things, into the link that's going to take you to all of the books that we're using pretty much in our Read Through the Bible series. So here are the journals. This reflection journal is so that you can write and take notes. This one has a lot of study information and will help you keep organized as you're studying the Bible. This is the Bible that I read from, the NIV Study Bible. Of course, Wise Courtship is here, and some of the other books that I wrote. Yes, God is Real, and also I Rise, Stories of Triumph. It's just a great encouragement tool. So walk on over to the stores and give us some support. I think you're going to be blessed by the products. Take care.